What's up, everybody? This is Tommy Runs, and this is the Run, Eat, Sleep Show live on YouTube. Every time I mess up, you will hear it because it's live. Today, we have a guest who is absolutely amazing. She had a wonderful NCAA career with a couple firsts in the 2015 NCAA outdoor and indoor 5,000 meters. She's got a few Big East wins in the NCAA. She's got multiple championship wins from that point till today. Most notably, the Olympic trials win in 2020 when it was the 10,000 meter. It was actually 10,000 degrees that day. So for her to run a 10,000 meter in the time she did in that temperature is just absolutely insane. But the biggest thing that we all know about very recently was the women's American record in the half marathon. She ran 67 minutes and 11 seconds. That's 1 hour, 7 minutes, 11 seconds. Emily Sisson is here today, so I'm really excited to get into this. We will get to the giveaway at the end, but nobody really cares about the giveaway because we have someone super amazing on the show. Hello, Emily. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, good. Well, I'm super happy I had the chance to meet you in person, so that's really cool, and it kind of makes things a little easier because I'm
Yeah,
always really nervous to have someone like on the show that's done a really great things. So, how are you doing? First of all, how are you
I'm
feeling?
good. Thanks. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back home in Flagstaff. So
Mhm.
we haven't been home for like 3 weeks. So it's actually just really
Oh
nice
wow.
sleeping in my own bed. So I'm enjoying it.
So like you just ran that was last Saturday or
Mhm.
Sunday? Last
Saturday,
Saturday.
Saturday.
So
Yeah.
do you get right back to are you right back to training right away, or how do you what do you do?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, pretty much right back into training. I took an easy day the day after the race,
Yeah.
but and I might push my workout like a day or two just to make sure my legs are feeling good. But my legs actually do feel pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of go by feel after a race and see how soon I need to work out or if I need to skip an evening run or something to help recover.
Yeah, I mean, because I know some people will take I mean, we're probably a little different than you, but sometimes you'll see people take a week off after a half, or maybe 2 weeks after a marathon. For your marathons, do you jump right back into it as well, like a couple days, or you give it a longer stretch?
The one marathon that I completed, I definitely needed more time to recover afterwards.
Mhm,
And but for me, actually, I get kind of stiff, so
mhm.
I need to rest, but I also need to keep my body moving because if
Right,
I don't
right.
move at all, then I just like I don't know, my mobility isn't great, and like I walk around like I'm probably 20 or 30 years older than I am.
Well, I
So
think oh, trust me, I think that's all of us. I mean, I think some of
yeah,
us probably walk around after a marathon like we're 70 years older than we are.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, trust me, it's not just you.
That's how I feel. Yeah. So I need to do like mobility stuff and I'll do some light running, but it's more just to keep my body moving.
Mhm.
And it's less for like fitness or anything. It's more just to keep me from stiffening up too much.
So, after, an effort like last Saturday or just any of your other longer races, I mean, do you feel like that does it take you a long time to kinda get back to feeling, fit again, or does it at this point, are you just kinda, always fit-ish?
There's always something going on. So I feel like there's always like peaks and valleys and bumps in
Yeah.
the road. But no, I actually feel pretty good coming out of the race. But yeah, there are some races that just takes a little bit longer than others. I did a
Mhm,
15K on the roads like a month and a half ago, maybe, and it was
mhm.
just really humid there. And I'm
Yeah.
training in Flagstaff, Arizona, where it's just so
No.
dry.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I like cramped up so bad during that race for like a week straight. Like running was just like painful.
Oh,
So
no.
my quads were just like seizing. And so like there are times it just takes a little bit longer. So you kind of
Yeah,
have to go off feel and see
yeah.
how your body's doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like to hear that you're, quad or seasoning in races or, stuff like that, but, I am very glad to hear that you may be human, possibly, so that's good to hear that it's not just me that, goes through these, moments after races and things like that.
Definitely not
Um
a robot.
Yeah, so you're not a robot, okay, well,
No,
that's good. So now
for sure.
we can know we'll know for sure that time will be, ratified, because you're not a robot. You've tested, you're not a robot.
Right.
But so I normally I start these shows off by going kinda a little farther back, and just talk about, how running became a thing for you. I mean, I know you've been running for quite some time, but, when was running introduced to you, and when did you kinda start liking it? Was it, a right away thing, or how'd that progress for you?
Yeah, I don't feel like my story is that unique. I feel like you hear this story a lot. I was a soccer player and I got into running through some of my teammates. We just wanted to do track to stay fit for soccer.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I joined the track, or did I do track or cross country first? I think I did track, and
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed it. So I was pretty young at the time, though. I want to say I was like 12 maybe.
Mhm.
And I remember really, really enjoying running. And I actually asked, I told my parents I wanted to quit soccer because I just wanted to focus on running.
Yeah.
And they actually told me, they're like, we think you're too young to just focus on one sport.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're like, keep playing soccer, keep enjoying like doing stuff with your friends. And then if you like, when you get older, if you want to focus on just like one sport, then you can probably stop playing soccer, but just enjoy
Yeah.
it. You're still so young. You don't need to take it seriously. And I'm actually so thankful that they said that back then. And when I entered high school and you had to pick one sport each season, then I did just track and cross country.
Mhm.
But yeah, pretty standard start in the sport, soccer player turned runner. So
Yeah.
you
What?
hear it a lot.
I mean, I've heard that before that people have done, or some people have just done like one sport. But most of the people that end up like, that we all end up hearing about and knowing about, for sure, is you hear a lot of people say that they played multiple sports,
Mhm.
growing up, and kind of had this not balance per se, but just not everything, all eggs in one basket. Like, what part of that helped you, and what do you think was the reason why that was a good for you, like in middle school?
I think it's actually good for a number of reasons. If you're thinking just about physiologically, it's good to do more than just running because you're just in one plane of motion the whole time. So it's good to do
Mhm.
sports like soccer, basketball, like anything really,
Mhm.
just so you're like a well-rounded athlete. But then for me, I actually think it was more important socially because I was such a shy, introverted kid. And so I
Mhm.
think, and we moved around a lot growing up. So it's how
Yeah.
I made friends and it's how I don't know. I think it helped me develop socially. I
Yeah.
think my parents were a little nervous if I just did running, that I'd probably like be missing out on that. So
Yeah.
for me, it was actually I think more a social aspect. That's where all my friends were on the soccer team. That's how I met people.
Yeah.
Because it always took me time when we moved somewhere new to meet, like to make new friends, and my
Right.
soccer teammates became my friends. So it was
Well, that's
pretty
good though.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good though, and then you don't get burned out either, like on
Yeah,
one
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think it's good. It gives you good perspective, and yeah, I just think learning how to be a team player is really important too. A lot of parallels in life through sports. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of benefits.
So once you got to high school and decided or had to kind of like go for one thing, one sport at a time, you chose cross country and track.
Mhm.
What like through your high school career as you kind of developed as a runner, like what are some of like the key takeaways that you feel like still play a role in like who you are as a runner now?
Yeah, that's hard. I feel like there's so many takeaways.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard to think of just like the best ones. I think I went to 3 different high schools, so I think
Mhm.
when I think back to high school, I think, of how I had, like, 6 different coaches. I had a different coach every
Wow.
cross country season and
Oh,
track
right.
season.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had to be very adaptable, and I was very conservative and patient because whenever I entered a new high school, each coach was like, "This is my first time coaching you. We're just gonna be conservative so
Oh,
you can learn
yeah,
what works."
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think, kind of bouncing around quite a bit, it did teach me how to be adaptable, patient, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's actually so many lessons in running. It's hard to just
Yeah.
be a couple. But in high school, that's probably what I picked up the most.
And then so you had a fairly successful, I mean, even though you're somewhat conservative, I mean, you did pretty well for yourself in high school. Um, so when you transitioned over to college or to the university level, what was like the biggest like shock to you once you got there?
It was like it was like being a small fish in a big pond,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that saying. Yeah, I felt like everything just got upped, intensity, mileage,
Mhm.
everything. And so learning how to do that and then adapt to living away from home for the first time, and you just being like holding yourself accountable to waking up on time, going to class, making sure you're fueling right, eating enough, sleeping enough for how much you're training,
Mhm.
things like that. But yeah, I'd say probably just the increase in mileage and intensity at first was the biggest thing for me because I was very low mileage in high school, and yeah, I did probably increase it a little too much too fast because
Mhm.
I remember like low iron right away, which I
Yeah,
think everyone hears.
yeah,
Everyone goes to college and their iron levels drop. It
yeah,
drives me
yeah.
nuts. So take your iron.
And so when you so like in college, I mean, say since you said, the small fish in a big pond, what if watching you run, now in like specifically like in the Olympic trials, you are like a fighter, out there when you run. And I mean, you all have to be. I mean, it's not like there's probably no one out there that's racing with you that isn't one. But
Mhm.
what do you what do you attribute like that spirit to? Like, was it sometimes it could be, some people it's like something that happened when they were younger that they just said they'll never happen again, or like it was a parenting thing where they instilled like certain things in you that just resonate through, through your life. What's one of those things that you attribute like your toughness to when it comes to racing?
Well, thank you. I think I've always naturally been really like intrinsically motivated and
Mhm.
very competitive, and working hard for me has never been an issue. The other, like the only, I'm almost the opposite. There are times I probably need to dial back the intensity and relax, and
From like a
when
workout
to push, when to pull back.
like from a training standpoint.
Just yeah, training probably,
Yeah.
yeah, or just in life in general. I feel like because I am such like I love to work and I love to push myself, but then there are times it's like to prevent burnout. I guess you
Mhm.
need
Mhm.
to learn it's okay to take breaks. It's okay to
Yeah.
take a day off if you're feeling really tired. I'm actually really good at that. It's something I feel like I used to not be great at when I was younger. But if my body's telling me I need to skip an evening run or take a day off, like I don't think twice about it now. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like
Yeah.
I need for my longevity, I need to look after myself. So yeah, I think it's instilled in me. I don't know, just I think who I am. But like you said, everyone at this level, like everyone's tough, everyone
Mhm.
works hard. Whenever I hear someone who wins the race being described as like, oh, they just work so hard, in my mind, I'm like, everyone works really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, yeah.
It's like a prerequisite to even
Yeah.
be in the conversation in a race because I don't think like the person that finishes first worked harder than the person that finished second or third. I
Right.
just think there's so many factors that go into performance, and like working hard is just something like I don't know, yeah, it's a prerequisite, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I mean, unless you just woke up one day and it's super fast.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
but so like, and for someone like you to say like you just love the work, and like there's some people that are just like workhorses. They run high mileage and they just go 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 and they're just pushing all the time. But for you to also say that like you're okay with if you're not feeling it to take a day off. Um, and to like give yourself like that grace. And I think that a lot of I'll talk about myself as an amateur runner. I mean, I feel like we have these goals and these PRs that we're chasing, and we see this like training plan in front of us, and we want to make these big jumps or small jumps or whatever, like in time. And it just, we push ourselves to the point where it's like, you know, we run out of runway, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
'cause we just burn ourselves out and we feel like we can't skip a day because then we'll all of a sudden lose all this fitness? So
Yeah.
can you talk about that though? For someone at your level to say like, "Hey, if I don't feel well, I'm just gonna take a day off." I think that'd be reassuring for me and maybe some other people.
Definitely. It's hard. I think it is harder when you're younger, but as I've gotten older, I don't know. There's just something like I think I've just had so many experiences now where, like,
Yeah.
looking back, I had to take 5 days off at one point because I had a cold or something, and then I still ran a PR 2 weeks later. When you
Mm,
have enough experiences like that, you like kind of realize fitness doesn't go away in like
right,
a
right.
day or
Yeah,
two.
not that fast.
And but I think it takes experiences like that, and like the more years you are in the sport, I think you kind of learn that and see that and realize that. And I've been running for so long now. Like I started when I was 12. That I
Mhm.
really do think that's the key to not burning out and to longevity is keeping it fun, keeping it like if you are feeling really tired, it is okay to take a day off. Like it won't set you back at all. If anything, it's just going to freshen you up.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just kind of like accepting that. I think so many of us are workhorses, like you said. So
Mhm.
it doesn't come naturally to a lot of us.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think like once I did accept that, I realized it actually benefits me, and I think it's going to give me a long career. The fact that I
Yeah.
am okay taking breaks, and I'm not afraid to take time off. Sometimes I need to take weeks off, and I just know that that's what my body needs, and that's okay. Like
Yeah.
I've bounced back from worse, so
Yeah.
I'll bounce back again.
Yeah, and I think it's like I think I've heard someone say like about training is being honest with yourself honest with yourself as
Mhm.
well. I mean, because you don't want to go like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take today off. Like, you don't want to
Yeah.
get to like where it's like, oh, I can spare a day. But it's one of those like, you have to be like, hey, is this a time when a day off is necessary? Like,
Right,
will this benefit me? Because if I have too much grace, I
right.
may take too many days off.
That's a good point. I guess it depends who you're
Yeah, too
talking
many
to and
Oreos.
what advice, is yeah, I guess is helpful. If I was talking to my younger self, I'd be like, "Take the day off."
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then if I was talking to my younger self about something not running related, maybe I'd be like, need to give myself, just some encouragement to, like, work harder. I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's funny how,
But
like, we'll work really hard when it comes to running, but some other areas, like, yeah, not so much.
yeah, maybe some of my
Um,
extracurricular classes in college, I could have worked a little harder at those, but
yeah, maybe. Well, it worked out for you. It worked out.
yeah,
Um,
balance.
so you mentioned earlier too, like, trying to keep it fun, and
Mhm.
I think that that's fun to hear, for this. I mean, this is your job, like,
Yes.
so for you to like keep it fun in there somewhere, like, talk to me about that. Like, how do you go about doing that, and why is it so important to or for you and others though as well to try to throw some fun in the mix?
I just think it's so important for longevity, like I said, and preventing burnout. And that's why I think my husband is actually such a crucial like support person in my team because he's this very lighthearted, easygoing Irish man. But what I love about him is he does work hard. He like when he needs to work hard, he works hard, but then he knows when like it's time to relax, it's time to have like fun, it's time to just chill. Like
Yeah,
I've always admired that in him, and so having him at like my workouts or races. He just keeps things so light, and that's what I need because, like I said earlier, I bring the intensity. I don't need I don't need
yeah,
anyone amping me up anymore. I need someone to kind of just remind me, like, hey, it's just running. Like it's just like another day.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think keeping it fun just it really does, I think, make you last in the sport. And also you want to enjoy it along the way. You don't want to look back
Mhm.
and just say, oh, I was grinding, like working away so hard and I didn't enjoy any of it. Like
Yeah.
so that's what we're trying to do. Even last night, we made a point. We're like, okay, we're going to go out and celebrate because yeah, we had an exciting weekend. Like,
Yeah, I think
we
you did
celebrate
something to deserve a little celebration,
stuff. Yeah, I think just as runners, a lot of us were always like going towards the next thing, which is
Yeah.
part of what makes us good. But it's also like you can have a whole career go by and you didn't stop and enjoy things along the way.
So, yeah, I have a question. So, I've had the pleasure of, like, running a PR before, and then, like, practically the same day, it's like, "Okay, so what's next?"
Yep, yep.
Um, how long just be honest here, how long did it take for that thought to come in after you literally, took the American half marathon record? How long did it take for that thought to come in and say, "On to the next one"?
It's like you can read my mind. This sounds terrible, but it was like that day. I was like, I want to go faster. My
Really?
husband's like,
Alright.
are you serious? But I was like, yeah, I think I can go. I can go faster.
Yeah.
He's like,
But
just
it wasn't like like, "Dang, I could've," but you just like, "I can."
yeah, as I can. I'm like, I already need to think about my next one. And I'm like, which one would I want to do to run another fast half? And he's like, just like wait a day or two.
Which one would it be?
I don't know. I think I'd probably go back to Houston or somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, it's a
So
fast yeah, it's a fa
yeah,
yeah,
if I
it's
want
a
a
really
fast
fast one.
one. So
Yeah.
we were actually debating going to Portugal instead of Indiana for the half. But I
Mm.
actually messed up something when I was renewing my passport, and
Oh, I'm
like we
glad you
hadn't
did.
decided yet anyway, but it made the decision for us. So we're like, well, we'll do Indiana.
Well, it's cool that you did it, on American soil too, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
that's what we were actually leaning towards Indiana just
Mhm.
because it was in the US and like it's less travel, so that's
Yeah,
less stressful. But
yeah.
then Midwest, like the weather is like I grew up in the Midwest. I know what the weather can be like, and it's
Mhm.
just not very reliable. So
No, not
we
at
were like,
all.
ooh, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
the 25K, championship is,
this
on
week,
Saturday,
yeah. What's the
and
weather looking like?
it's gonna be like 60 as the low and like 80 as the high, possibly, but
Ooh,
maybe rain the day
okay,
before or not. I don't know. So
interesting.
it may work out well. Like if it rains before, so like the day before, it'll drop the temperature a little
Yeah, it won't
bit.
be too
So,
bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's in the morning too, so it's like we'll see.
Yeah, if you're starting early enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I
Yeah.
think in Indiana it's close to 90 this week, which is like
Yeah,
so
it's 80
different.
I'm in Michigan, it's 80 something right now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, if race was this week or this weather
Oh,
was
yeah.
last week, like
So it was perfect. Everything happened exactly as it should, for sure.
right, right.
And then so, yeah, so we'll look for you in Houston.
Okay.
And so let's talk about, racing, you know what I mean? That's what you do. You're pretty good at it. I was happened to be on that panel with you for the You Can thing. Um, and you kinda touched on the 10,000-meter Olympic trials, win. And so from my side of things watching you, the announcers are just saying like, oh well, she trains here and she's got, she's running the heat before. But it was all about like that you train like in the heat, so you'll be fine, and this is why. But then you said something on the panel that was like you had a couple issues with running in the heat before, like in
Mhm.
certain races before, like recently, like kind of recent before that. And you had to tell yourself like that doesn't mean anything. So it was like two
Mhm.
different narratives. And when you said it, I was kind of shocked, like, oh, like what I thought, well, from our side, we just knew you were running in a
Yeah.
inferno, and you just were ready for it.
Yeah. They run
So
in an
like
oven.
but I thought that was crucial because
Mhm.
how did you position that for yourself to have had bad experiences with something as, detrimental as heat can be, and then still take a positive mindset into a race that was gonna be, like, just wildly hot?
Yeah, so I that's a good question. So in 2016 at the Olympic trials, I actually overheated and
Mhm.
I passed out. I don't remember the finish. So I think I did finish, but I like don't remember it.
Yeah.
Um, and and yeah, it was like hot that day, but actually not as hot as it was when we were racing.
Mhm.
And as hot as we were racing this past year, I mean.
Yeah.
And I remember afterwards someone saying, "Oh, you must just be bad in the heat." And I actually challenged that narrative right away because I was like, no, I don't think that's it. I think I just raced above my fitness level. I think I wasn't listening to my body. I was injured all spring. I
Mhm.
just didn't have like the strength and the fitness going into this race I probably just raced above my fitness level.
Yeah.
And it would have been so easy for me to say, oh, I'm just bad in the heat. And then that
Yeah.
be like the narrative in my head from like then on. But then I didn't like accept that. I was like, no, I don't think that's true.
Right,
So,
right, right.
but I hear people say that all the time, like, oh, I'm bad in the heat. Oh, I'm bad in like these conditions. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
bad. Like, I don't know. Like, I do hear it a lot. So I think you do need to be careful with the stories you tell yourself because they might not necessarily be true,
Right.
but it can affect like your mindset going into a race. And I'm pretty sure I was right on that one. I think I just was racing above my fitness level. And then this past year, I didn't do heat training going into the trials, but I
Mhm.
did live in Phoenix for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been in Phoenix like for the 3 months before the Olympic trials, but I
Yeah.
still like I know that feeling of running in the heat. I've done it so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So I probably did have an upper hand because I kind of know where that red line is. I know what to
Right,
expect. I
right,
know how to prepare.
right,
So
right.
it probably did help.
Yeah.
But I did have the fitness this time, so I wasn't racing above my fitness level.
And so, like, if you're watching this and you haven't watched the 2020 Olympic trials 10,000 meter, that Emily won, you have to watch it because it was kind of insane. Like I'm like watching you like go around and around, and I'm like, and it wasn't like it wasn't close. Like you kind of like left everybody. But and I mean, it was a tough day. People were dropping out because of the heat, which is understandable. But like, d- do you remember like where your mind was like as you were just taking off these laps? And I mean, because you had to notice that everybody else was like going through it. Like, what was going through your mind when you were just closing out that race?
A few things. I was trying to race within myself. I was trying not to like overstep and like just listen to my body. I also though I wasn't looking at like the scoreboard. Like I didn't want to see everyone behind me because I knew I was
Mhm.
like leading a bunch of people. So I only glanced at like the video on the scoreboard once throughout the race. It was like at halfway and I never looked at it again.
Mhm. What did
Because
you
I
see?
just was
What did you see halfway when you looked at that
I
at that
saw
point?
everyone behind me just this
They were
long
still right there? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it might have been not even halfway, it was before halfway. But I remember just seeing like this long line of runners, and I was like, I don't want to look at that again.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
No, thank you.
uh, so I didn't. And I just focused on like the plan Ray gave me and just like making sure I was racing within myself, not like
Mhm,
overreaching. I wanted to make sure I had enough at the end so that I could pick it up that last 2K, like each lap pick it up.
mhm.
So that's what I did. I forgot, was there another part to this question? I
No,
forgot.
no, I guess I just wanted to, because I'm really fascinated with like the mental toughness and like the
Oh
great
yeah.
aspect of like of running in general. Because we all, have those moments where it's like we want a PR and we want to
Yeah.
break 4 or break 5 in a marathon or whatever, and we just like have to try to go somewhere a little different,
Mhm.
than in the beginning of the race. But like it had to be a tough day, even for you. I mean,
Right.
even though that you won and you won well. Just wondering like what was like the thought process towards the end when it got tough.
So I actually remember thinking a mile in when it felt hot on the track and I noticed it. I remember being like, oh, this feels hot. This feels
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And I was only a mile into the race at that point. But I told myself, I'm like, well, if you're feeling hot, everyone's feeling hot. So
Yeah, true,
I
true.
was like, I think I did have confidence coming from Phoenix. I'm like, all
Mm.
right, like, I don't know. If you're feeling it, everyone's feeling it.
Right.
So I did tell myself that. And I do remember another thing I was thinking, like as we were walking onto the track, when I was really nervous because there was a lot on the line. I had tried to make the Olympic team in the marathon the year and a half prior to
Mhm.
that,
Yep.
and I failed pretty bad. Like it was probably like the worst race of my career, I'd say.
In Atlanta?
In Atlanta, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
and I was like,
that was different too.
yeah, that was that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But I was actually pretty devastated after that. Like I really wanted to make that team, and I worked really hard for it. And so afterwards, I was definitely in a bit of a funk because I didn't even just not make it. I had a DNF,
Mhm.
and I remember because it was such a low after that race. Like race went really poorly. We entered a pandemic. There were no other races to jump in to kind of get
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
the past one. I remember walking onto the track at the Olympic trials thinking like I felt like I had nothing to lose because I'd already like I felt like I had hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
So I was like I was proud of like the effort I put into that build up going into the track trials. I was proud of every like I don't know, every decision I made. I didn't regret a single one and there was
Right.
nothing I would have done differently. And at the end of the day, all you can really focus on is the effort that you put forth and the attitude that you have. And I remember stepping on the track and I'm like, I like wouldn't have done a single thing differently. So now like I'm just gonna give it everything I have because that's what I always do when I race. And if that ends in me making the team, that's amazing. And if not, well, I've been there before. I'll
Yeah,
give
yeah.
it again and I'll be able to sleep at night because yeah, I put forth my best effort. So yeah.
And so like just to I don't wanna I mean, because it's obviously it was a tough time, in Atlanta, right?
Mhm.
Hilly course, wildly windy. I was
Mhm.
there watching on the sides, and it was hard to watch because it was just like you couldn't even stand still because the wind was so
It,
strong.
it was windy, yeah.
Yeah. And
Everyone talks about
so
the hills. I think people forget about the wind, but that's a good point.
like, that's, like I know it was probably I mean, I didn't see the rest of the course, I was, like, kinda, like, in one spot, like, watching,
Yeah,
like, everybody keep going by, but the wind was really intense, like,
it
and
was,
because I
yeah.
raced the half the next day, the Publix half marathon, and I was just praying that, like, if the wind is like this in the morning, I'm not even gonna run, because it was really ridiculous, like, if you're not
It
getting
was
paid,
windy.
if you're not doing this professionally, then, why would you do it? But, so, like, after something like that because so I ran Boston and I didn't have the experience that I wanted to for a couple of reasons. But after you train for a marathon, you train for a thing and it doesn't happen, whether it's like terrible or it's just you're short, by seconds or whatever it is. Like, how do you get past like how did you get past that? And you said you were in like a little bit of a low after the trials, the road trials. How do you move forward with that?
I think it is a bit harder with the marathon versus any other distance or event because with a marathon, you train like you put so much work into
Mhm.
it. You train for months. And if it doesn't go well, you can't just go do another one like a week
Yeah,
later, like you would with
yeah.
like a 5K or even a 10K. You could find one in like a few weeks or a couple weeks
Mhm.
after. But yeah, if you get food poisoning, injured, something like there's so many things, so many variables with the marathon that it is tough when you have a bad one because you can't just turn around and do another one right away.
Mhm.
So I think the way I handled it and how I usually handle bad races, and this was made harder in 2020, was I kind of just look towards the next thing. I'm like, all
Mhm.
right, like it's part of the sport, it's part of the journey. You have good days and bad days, and you hope the bad days don't fall on the really important days, but
Yeah, yeah.
it happens. Like everyone's human, everyone like it just happens. And especially right now, like with how deep American distance running is, it helps me to get over a bad race by kind of jumping into the next thing.
Mhm.
But there was no next thing to jump into because all the races got canceled
Yeah.
because of COVID.
Yeah, that's tough.
So I remember just feeling a bit lost at the time. And I've never felt that way in my career before after a bad race because usually I'm like,
You
all
can
right, like you can feel sad for like I give myself 48 hours. I'm like, it's okay to feel sad. You put a lot of work into it. Like you put your heart and soul into that
right.
and it didn't work out. But like feel sad and then like pick yourself up and move on to the next thing because one of the like best things about our sport is there's always something just around the corner.
Yeah.
Whether it's road races, track, cross country, like there's literally something like
Every
constantly.
time. Yeah. All day.
Apart from in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So that was the one tough thing with 2020 was there was nothing to look forward to. Like my calendar was blank, and I'm like, well, what am I doing? And so that was like a little tough. But then I did just I'm trying to remember. I think I did set some goals like outside of like racing because there were no
Mhm.
races. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm gonna take this time and try to learn and invest and figure out what went wrong in Atlanta. What can I strengthen? What can I
Mhm.
like take away? What can I take into my next marathon that I didn't know going to this one?
Mhm.
And so I did things like that. And then as soon as races started popping up and I had something on the calendar, even if it was only like, even if it was like 4 months away, when I knew I was doing the Valencia half marathon, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I have something to look forward to. So
Mhm.
um, I just targeted that. But for me, getting over the best way to get over a bad race is to just kind of um, to look forward to the next one and set
Nice.
out a new goal because there's always something.
Yeah, I liked I mean, you said, a lot I mean, 'cause it's always, really cool, like, now that races are back going and we even if it's a
Mhm.
marathon, I mean, you really can, be upset with yourself for a little bit and then just set if you wanna do another one, just set a one farther out or say, like,
Right.
"Forget it, I'll do a half," or do something different for
Mhm.
the time being. But there's always, like, a new race and a new challenge or, um but then also I like that you took the time to say, like, "Well, I can't race right away, so let me go back and kind of, analyze what happened," and I'm a firm believer of, like, control the controllables.
Right. Yeah.
And you kinda said that a little bit earlier too, like, you control what you put forth and the attitude that you go into it with. Um,
Mhm.
so for me, it's like, I loved the fact that you're like, "Well, let me see what I did wrong," and it's not necessarily saying, like, that
Mm.
the marathon the training block was your fault, or whatever, but we have, like, some agency in, like, looking back to say, "Okay, maybe I could do more strength training or, bike riding or ice bath." I say ice bath because I absolutely, like, will not do it. I
I
can't.
don't do ice baths.
I just don't like I've tried it, but I just don't like it, you
I don't
know?
like them either, and I for me, I don't think I haven't noticed them help. So I
Well,
do
I
Epsom salt baths.
Yeah, I definitely haven't known some help because I'm never in it long enough
Yeah.
for it to help. But, like, it just like, I know you're not supposed to like it, like, it's not like a but I just
Right.
don't I can't stay in the water. Just can't do it.
No, I don't do them either, so I'm team
Good.
Epsom salt bath.
Well, you have enabled me to never do it. So thank you
Okay,
so much
good.
because I now have a record holder's permission to not ice bath. Thank you.
All right. Good. I'm glad
Interview
I
over, it
encourage
was a
that.
success, thank you. But, so I like the control the controllables part because, even on race day, like, there's only so much that you can control, like, the heat, like, you could have let the heat in that trials, race, the 10,000 get to you, but you're like, you had the wherewithal to say, "Wait, slow down, think about it. Oh, other people are dealing with this too,"
Mhm.
because that thought like, a lot of times in marathons, like, or in races or in life in general, like, we isolate ourselves as if everyone around us or other people aren't, like, going through the same thing,
Right.
you
That's
know?
actually such a good point. Yeah. like you see your bumps in the road, you see your hiccups in
Yeah.
training, and you just think everyone else has perfect training, and that's
Yeah.
just not the case. Yeah.
Well, Instagram looks really good though.
Instagram does look very good.
Instagram and Strava look really great. Like, so you'll think
Yeah.
that not in as an amateur, I'm not racing against anybody. It doesn't matter. Like, why do I care? But it's like, yeah, they're not, they don't have a pain in their foot like I do or whatever
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. Or their splits seem to be faster. Like, it doesn't even matter. But it's like we do have this thing where we decide almost that it's just like we're the only ones going through it. So I loved that you were in a race, in a big race too, like, because that's when your mind could have taken over, but you're like, you know
Yeah.
what, everybody's going through this, so just keep on going. you know just
That's a good
keep
point, though.
on.
You do think you yeah, you only see like the highlight reel on Instagram of everyone
Yeah,
else. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, Instagram's fun, but like, not
it
if you're
is.
looking at it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And then, so, like, let's jump from that trials to the trials. And so now let's get to this mission that you've had for a little bit. So I call it third time's a charm, and I think
Yeah.
maybe I might name the episode third time's a charm because you you went after this half marathon record that you finally grabbed on Saturday. You went after it two other times, and
Mhm.
you ran when it was, I think it was 107.25 was the time set
Yeah.
by who
Molly.
had it? Molly, right? Oh,
Molly
cool. We'll get
Huddle.
to we'll get to her in a little bit.
Okay.
So Molly Huddle had it at 107.25, and then you ran 107.30, 5 seconds shy,
Mhm.
and then ran 107.26,
Yeah.
which is like brutal.
Oh,
And
it's
then,
awful.
because I'm sure you probably were like, you know what, that one time, that two steps, I could have got better.
Oh, you have no idea. Yeah. The things that went
That's
through my
how
head after that, I was just like, if I just ran the tangents better, or there was a time I had to stop at a roundabout because I didn't know which exit to take. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
this is
that was it. That
that was
was
my
it.
second.
That
Yeah.
was it. That was it. And
Yep.
you were in the lead? And
No, I
where
was just
was the
alone. So
Oh, really?
I was alone that whole race in Valencia, yeah, and so I there was a big roundabout, and I remember I couldn't tell which exit I was supposed to take, and I went, like, the most, like, least direct way to the exit I was supposed to take, and I had to,
Oh,
like,
man.
stop. And I remember thinking that after the race, I'm like, "If I just wore sunglasses and I could have seen into the bright sun, which way I was supposed to go?"
Oh,
It was a
man.
long plane ride back.
Oh, man. Yeah, you was playing every step of the way. All 1 hour and 7 minutes and 24 seconds you were thinking about. And
It
then,
was
so
beautiful.
as in between that time, Sara Hall ran a little bit faster, so I think she ran 107.15. So
Mhm.
what was your thought, like, just as a competitor, like, what was your thought when that time dropped?
A couple people asked me that. They're like, "What'd you think when Sarah dropped the time?" And in my head, I really was just like, just not surprised. I think a lot of
Mhm,
American distance runners are going to be running a lot faster in the half
mhm, yeah,
marathon. And so I like saw that and I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. It should like that's
yeah,
where the American record should be." And I think we're going to be running faster too.
yeah,
And like I actually wanted to run faster than I did in Indiana. And I just think like they're just the state of distance running in the US right now, like I think a lot of people are going to be running faster, and
mhm.
I think the record's going to keep dropping.
That's awesome,
So
though.
I'd like to drop it first, but
Yeah,
but I think a lot of people are going to be running under that.
that's awesome.
And if I can't drop it first, I'll just chase whoever's time is next. So
Yeah, no, I hear that, I hear that. And so on Saturday, you ran 107.11. So
Mhm.
please describe to me or tell me what that 4 seconds means to you.
It means a lot. I was working really hard at the end of that race, so I wasn't sure. I knew it was going to be close against the record,
Mhm,
and I tried so hard. I had a really good pacer actually, Brian Harvey. It was the first time I
mhm,
ever used a personal pacer in a race, and he helped like immensely, especially at the end. I was like really hurting, but
mhm.
we were able to close pretty quickly over the last like or at least faster than we had been running over the last like 1K or 1 mile.
Yep,
Um, so yeah, I just remember trying so hard to get to that finish line as fast as I could, but
yep,
I was hurting like for half that race. I actually didn't feel that great. So, but then I like looking back on the race and I'm like, oh, that's actually positive to see that I was hurting from like mile 6 on and I was able to kind of keep pushing at the
yep,
same pace and even finish faster. So when I run a marathon and I start hurting at mile like 20, I like have that confidence. I can hopefully just keep grinding it out because I've done it before.
And so like when you saw the clock and because I was like watching, I paid for the subscription to like watch you run. And
Nice.
I'm like we're looking at the clock, looking at you coming closer to it. When you knew that you were gonna break it, like I know you're probably at that point your mind's like, kind of going nuts because you've been running, like all out pretty much for an hour and 7 minutes or so. What were your thoughts like when you saw that time cross the line? What were your first like couple thoughts?
My first thought initially, I genuinely was just so tired. So
Mhm.
my first thought was like, I need to stop running. Like I need to stop moving right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And then like it took like 30, like it took like a minute for it to kind of sink in, because I was like, I did have to dig really deep.
yeah,
And then it was like, I was really happy. It was like a feeling, just because I have been working hard for like 3 years to try, to get the record. So it was something I've been working for a while. So I think
mhm,
that made it more meaningful.
yeah.
And now, of course, like a few days later, and I want to go after it again. So typical runner.
So you're definitely feeling like you could 106 something it.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. Yeah, and I actually think a lot of American distance runners can do that. So
Yeah.
if we had a few of us in a race, I actually think like it was so helpful having a pacer. But when you have like other competition, it brings something out in you that it's hard
Yeah,
to
right.
get otherwise. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, if we could all just like pick a half marathon somewhere,
I feel like
and like
Houston I feel like Houston will be it though, like, I
yeah, I
mean,
think Houston, a lot of Americans do Houston.
yeah,
And yeah, I think it is dependent on the weather there, but I do think that brings something else out in you.
yeah,
And that can like, I think a lot of us actually can do it. So yeah, I think that's where the record will be heading. So yeah.
awesome, awesome. And then, speaking of the record, someone that had the record before Sara Hall, Molly Huddle.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in 2020, I know you mentioned like, I mean, it was a tough year for everybody, and it feels like it's probably gonna be like 2035, and we're still gonna be talking about 2020, like what the
Yes.
effect was and all that. But I feel like 2020 was a tough year for a lot of reasons, but I do feel like in running in the running community, it showed more people that we missed like running with each other and having training partners and people to push us and all that stuff because I know that I trained pretty solo for in the beginning of my like running journey, but then after the pandemic I'm like, well, I like people, like,
Yeah.
um so at least have a few people around that I can run with, and after that break it felt like it was really important to run with people. How important has like training with Molly over the years been for you as a friend, but as a competitor and all that?
Yeah, she definitely, I don't think when I joined her group at the time, we realized our relationship would kind of be, she like would be my mentor and I'd be like the mentee. But that is kind of how it panned out. And I am really thankful that because she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to like let me just observe how she handled things and how she carries herself and handles like setbacks and everything. But she did. She let me just kind of like tag along and learn from her. And I think like for me, the amount I learned from her is like what's just so like you can't put a price on it.
Mhm.
It's impacted my career and how I carry myself and how I handle things. Because like Molly Huddle, I remember like before I really started training with her and knew her, I always thought she just like everything looked so easy for her,
Mhm.
and how she raced and how like it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. Like I'm like, oh, she just must have everything that goes like perfectly all the time because yeah, she just never has like a bad day. But then like training with her and just seeing how she like things wouldn't go perfect all the time, but she always
Right.
handled things really well. And so that to me was like the most important thing to learn and see, and yeah, and how she invested in herself and her career. And yeah, I think the amount I learned from her, that's the biggest takeaway. And in 2020, we actually weren't together that much because she was in Providence
Mm.
and I was in Phoenix. But it did, I feel like 2020 make you appreciate having teammates and people to run with, because it was a lonely time when
Yeah.
you couldn't meet up with friends to run, or even for us, like we used to go out to dinner with friends all the time. And in 2020, we just like didn't do that. And
Yeah.
it definitely got lonely. But now like we have family coming in tomorrow, and I feel like we went 2 years without seeing my husband's family, and so it makes you appreciate things so much more, like running with people, seeing friends. So that is a bit of a silver lining.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some people out there that were like loved 2020 because they didn't have to see their spouse's family. So
Yeah.
that's
It's funny, like
so
as an introvert, people are like, "Oh, you must be handling like I don't know, like the pandemic really well." And I'm like,
yeah.
"No, I like people." Like it doesn't
Yeah.
mean you don't like people. It just yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I wanna be an introvert, like, but I'm an introvert by choice, not like
yeah.
because like I don't wanna be like I don't wanna not be able to, at
Yeah,
all. Like
yeah. Like I
I
like
don't want
hanging out with my friends and family, and then I
yeah,
just need to like, I don't know, like go take a nap after or something, or
like
like go have some me time.
yeah, like, I enjoy like, spinning people's text messages like, "Oh, I can't make it, because of this or whatever." But like during the pandemic, I couldn't even lie about it. Like it's just like, "Oh, I got this thing." Like, "No, you don't have a thing. You're not
You
doing
don't have a
anything."
thing.
But
There's
yeah, so
nothing.
like, yeah, I want a choice. I want a choice if I'm gonna be alone or not.
Yeah.
But so, you have the cool thing that like the Molly Huddle relationship is not like you didn't go like, yeah, these workouts that she used to do and these long runs, or you didn't say anything about running really. But it was all about like those intangibles, like those extra things that were like, how she carried herself and how she handled, failures or setbacks.
Right.
And that says a lot because I think that we always look towards like the performance aspect of things rather than like how we like go about the day-to-day business of like life and balance and all that.
That's a
Like,
good
so
point.
how do you like go about, you know, um balancing, like your ambitions with like family, but then also like failures with like getting better? Like how do you find that like happy mix to kind of move forward? And is it something you kind of learn from watching Molly too?
Yeah, that's the classic like outcome versus process, I guess,
Yeah.
like mindset. It is, I mean, it can be tricky because, like, especially in running, like, if you're trying to make an Olympic team, like, it's hard not to feel like it's pass fail because, like, it
Yeah,
really does depend on that one day finishing in the
yeah,
top three. Like, you make
yeah,
it or you don't.
yeah,
Like that's, I think, still the trickiest is learning how to handle that.
yeah.
But actually, I talked to, this is related. I talked to
I'm
I talked
I'm gonna let you know this
to
is related.
I'm like, I'm kind of going off topic, but it relates.
That's fine.
So I talked to a friend of mine from Rhode Island. She's a sports site coach. And one thing we talked about when I was struggling kind of with that outcome versus like process mindset was we worked together and we looked back on like my favorite races, the ones that went really well and the ones that I like enjoyed the most, and and then the ones I didn't enjoy. And we like found a lot of commonalities between them,
Mhm.
and we kind of broke it down. And I'm trying to remember the phrasing she used, but when you go into a race and with this more like curious mindset where you're like, I'm just like really excited to see what I can do. I don't feel like I have anything to lose really. I'm just like just excited for an opportunity. That's when I feel like I performed my best.
Mhm.
And then when I went into other races where I'm like, I need to win this, I need to run
Yeah.
this time. If I don't, like I remember in college trying to win my first national title, I was like, I need to win this, or else I'm like not going to get a good, like I'm not going to be able to get a sponsorship or something.
Yeah.
You feel like you have something to lose, and it's more negative. I like wouldn't enjoy those races, and I wouldn't like enjoy the process at all, and it was more stressful and more
Yeah.
anxiety inducing. And I'm trying to remember like she had names for both of those ways of thinking, but I think like the main takeaway is like when you go into a race and you're less focused on like stressing over it has to be this outcome, and you're focused more on like I'm just excited to see what I can do. This looks like a fun, oh, it's a challenge mindset. It seems
Yeah.
like a fun challenge.
Yeah.
And like you feel like you don't really have anything to lose.
Yeah.
That's when like you get the best out of yourself, and you're probably like a better like person to be around because you're less
Mhm.
stressed and you're less anxious, and yeah, and like that's when you kind of grow. So I do try to remember that when I'm like taking on like a marathon buildup,
Mhm.
to try to like have more of that like challenge versus threat mindset. Threat's the other one.
Oh,
So,
challenge versus threat.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Not, yeah, that definitely is on
I
topic.
don't know if that didn't make any sense at all,
No,
but I swear it
yeah,
does in my head.
no, it didn't at all. No,
Did
it was great,
it?
like like the challenge versus, versus threat. I mean, because you do, like, you build up all in Boston when I went to Boston. So like my whole thing for a couple years was like getting to Boston and all this other stuff.
Mm,
And then so I got there, and then it's like you do have like I think I did approach it with like the threat mindset where it was like, I gotta do this. Like this is a thing. I've been training for it forever. Who cares if my knee is no good at the
yeah.
moment? Like I have to do this. It's all or nothing. And I'll
Yep.
be a failure if I don't finish in the time I wanted,
Yeah, and it
as
has to happen
opposed
on this day. Yeah.
yeah, and as opposed to, like, even after the knee thing, I really could have looked at it a little differently, and who knows, like, whether the knee would it probably would have flared up, it probably would have hurt, whatever, but I would have maybe had a better experience in that moment still than, like, this absolute suffer fest that I had, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but even on a good day, though, when we do well, like, I feel like given like let's just say you run a PR of the same exact time and you have a challenge versus threat mindset on each side. I'd much rather like have a more positive attitude during that time frame,
Yeah.
even if I finish at the same time, because
I agree.
it's much
Yeah.
more painful, mentally and physically if you look at it the wrong way.
No, I agree actually. Yeah, then I think the same way. Yeah, I even like I use the example of trying to win my first NCAA title. I actually I didn't enjoy that race that much because I was like I have to win this, and it was
Yeah, yeah,
almost a relief when it was over. And
yeah,
looking back, I'm like I didn't enjoy that one. But then like going into outdoor track my senior year, I was like I felt like again okay I have nothing to lose now. I'm just really excited, and I enjoyed like every second of that race.
yeah,
So same outcome for both of them,
yeah,
but yeah, like I don't know, you just want to I don't know. For me, like the longevity again, you do want to make it like as fun as you can and just kind of minimize the stress when you can because there are stressful parts of this job that, like you said, are out of
mm.
your control when it comes to running. So yeah, control what you can, control your attitude and effort, and then yeah, I don't know.
The rest will fall where it is. Yeah.
Yep, and yeah,
And you can't control that either, just gotta do what you can do. But so like, do you think that, I mean, 'cause I know you had COVID a couple months ago, right?
yeah, 6 weeks ago, yeah.
Oh, geez, 6 weeks ago. I thought it
It
was a
was
little
I was
longer.
talking to Carrie, and I know it's 6 weeks because I looked it up. It was 6 weeks
Oh,
ago
nice.
Monday. Yeah.
All right, wow. So, but like, so do you think, like, I feel like that might have helped you reframe this race to more of a challenge mindset too, because you mean you weren't trying to use it as like as an excuse to not show up for the day, but it's obviously a factor of like I don't know
Right.
how this is gonna play out over this distance. So was that maybe a blessing in disguise somewhere to say like, hey, let's just go out here and do our best and figure it out?
So that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
COVID did affect me more than I was hoping it would,
Yeah.
and so I really like you said, I actually didn't know where my fitness was.
Mhm.
But I did kind of approach it like more challenge mindset because I remember thinking going into the race, um, I have not had a good last 6 weeks of training or 5 weeks. Um, and I have not put the work in that I wanted to put in, but I think it's still worth like giving it a shot because the last like 2 weeks before that race, like 2.5 weeks, I felt like I had turned a corner.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking like training hasn't been going great. Like it's not perfect, but like what's the worst that can happen? I go out there and I miss the record. Like I've
Yeah.
already done that. So and I'm like, I've done that. I've been there. I've handled it. So I mean, I might as well. Like I was pretty fit before I got COVID. I
Yeah.
know I'm not in the same shape as I was then, but like maybe I haven't lost that much.
Right.
Um, so like yeah, I thought it was worth giving it a shot because the worst that could happen is you don't get it. And
Yeah.
like I've done that before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that it was kind of the like I don't have anything to lose. But yeah, no, it was I would have rather not gotten
Yeah,
COVID.
right, right. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying like you're like, "Hey, anytime COVID, come back around,"
I know.
but
Now I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, I
yeah,
would
yeah,
have definitely rather not had it, but it's so
yeah,
contagious. I don't know. There's only so much you can do, so
yeah, yeah, I
kind of
know.
have to, yeah, do your best.
But you did, yeah, but it worked out again for you, so that's good that that you didn't use that as like as a way to like maybe not give it your all that day,
Right.
so
Yeah, and that is important to point out because I have gone into races in the past where I've had really, really bad like previous 2 weeks of training.
Mhm.
And my rule is on the start line, like you don't think of anything that could hold you back. So whether it was like, oh, I just had COVID in the race, I'm not thinking about that. Like if it starts to creep into my head, I just bat it away. So
Yeah.
I've gone to races before where I had something at the Olympics, actually, my last 2 weeks of training, or yeah, I think it was 2.5 weeks, were just, I wasn't really running that much at all. But I'm like, you don't think about that. Like for the next like 31 minutes for this 10K, you're just focused on competing. And then
Yep.
afterwards you can think about it all you want, but,
I
but
mean,
not during this race.
I mean, that's like I like to hear that type of thing though, because like we all deal with like something, that I mean, sometimes you have a perfect training block, sure,
Right.
but like there's so many times more than not, especially like for some of the amateur runners that you know just don't have all the things at our disposal to kind of make a training block go better maybe.
Right. Yeah.
So we get to these start lines with doubt, or like with like we just one thing that creeps in, like, oh yeah, you didn't make it to those last 2 long runs.
Yeah.
So it's like I like to hear that it does happen to you. You just have to figure out a way just like to bat it away, as you said. So that's good.
Yeah. Just not think about it when you're racing. Yeah, I think that is really important.
Yeah.
Because no one, like it's like it is rare to have a perfect buildup.
Yeah.
I almost always have something pop up, whether it's like illness or no, I roll an ankle or something random, like I don't know, like in a buildup somewhere. So yeah, I try not to think about that at all when I'm racing.
Well, yeah, I'll make sure that when something creeps up, I'll think about you, like, oh, just get it out of here. Negative thoughts go away.
Yeah, when you're racing, you can't have those negative thoughts.
No.
Like when it starts to creep in, just be like, nope, not now.
Not now? Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, like, what's the thing? Not now? Okay, cool.
It's just something like that. Yeah, just redirect your mind to something else. Find something positive, like that's genuinely positive. Not like I'm not someone that can just make up something. Like if I'm in a race and I'm hurting, I'm not gonna say to myself, "Oh, you're not hurting," because
No, yeah, there's no
I'll
way.
be like, "Oh, your form's actually not like your form is good. You feel strong, or your breathing is good, or just something that's or like just get to the next like mile marker, like it's probably just going through a rough patch, something like that. Just try to find something in the situation that can kind of pull you along.
And just keep the legs moving.
Keep moving. Yeah.
But so I wanted to kind of, because there's something that we share, which is I'll have it pop up here really quick for you, and then you'll be like, oh, I get it. So we share this in the corner there. So we both, oh, there we go. We both share this little thing called You Can, or whatever. So You Can is pretty awesome. And I was just wondering too, like, so like how has You Can, and I used it a lot in the last training block, and it was just like, it was the first time I used it during training, and it just was absolutely amazing to kind of help me get through. Whether it was like the energy powder, or like the You Can Edge, or even like the protein plus energy thing, or the mix. So what part did You Can play in these last few buildups for you? And just because like I want to see what the difference is, because you obviously used other products before, but how much has that helped you in this buildup?
I started using You Can last fall, so after the Olympics. And they're the first products that have sat really well in my stomach, like every product I've tried. So my favorite ones are, well, right now I'm drinking the Hydrate, just because after the race I need all the electrolytes. And everything just sits so well. So I love taking like the Edge packets with me, because a lot of times you can't have a gel without water, otherwise like you'll risk cramping up. But like with You Can, with their Edge, that's not like an issue. So especially when it's hot in Arizona, like I might get to a workout and I have like an 8 mile tempo and I'm like, oh, it's pretty warm, I need something else. And like I can just take one and I don't need to like worry about cramping or not sitting well. So the Edge, the protein and energy powder for after workout's great, because that's where you make your big gains after a workout. You want to make sure you're fueling and getting those the protein carb mix in as quickly as you can. So they basically just helped me get like fuel into me better, because I have a very sensitive stomach. And I've noticed my energy levels actually after having like the protein drink, like I just don't crash throughout the day like I used to. So yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I feel the same way as well too. I mean, because I thought it was really funny when Emma said that she was like, I didn't know that like gastrointestinal problems were not supposed to happen.
Not normal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because she was like, yeah, I
exactly.
didn't even know. I thought that was like came with the territory, but you just got to figure out what works for you. Because I mean, this is the Run, Eat, Sleep show too. Because I always want to make sure
Mhm.
that we talk about like the nutrition side of things too, because it does matter. Like it does. You can't just eat what eat whatever, or or not fuel yourself properly during a run or after a run
Right.
or before a run, and think that that you're gonna get the best out of yourself. And I just thought it was interesting to know like that after all the stuff you tried, which is the sponsor of this episode, it did well with you, and
Yeah,
and
it
it
sat
helped you.
really well.
Yeah,
I've had stomach yeah, I've always had a sensitive stomach, so,
yeah,
as soon as I tried it, they reached out, in the fall, and I was like, "Can I try some products?" And immediately just texted, my agent. I'm like, "These are working really well."
yeah.
So
Keep them. Yeah, it's a keeper. So with that, I wanna bring it to the giveaway really quickly so that we can end on a high note here. Because
Okay.
so I want you, because what we're doing is we're giving away or UCAN is sponsoring this episode, but they're also giving away a marathon training bundle. The marathon training bundle is 24 edge pouches, which is these. Then there's 12 energy powder packets that you mix up before the run, and you take, I think it's like 30-40 minutes before the run. Then the energy plus protein tub, which is kind of dope because sometimes after a run, like you want protein, but you don't want to go to sleep after that either. Like you got to like live your life. So the energy helps out there. And then the hydrate jar, which is you had just then, and a
Mhm.
blender shaker bottle, which is the one that you held up as well, which is $200 worth of value. So this number that you pick is very important because they may not like you if you don't pick their number. So
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you to pick a number between 1 and 55. And then
Okay.
the number that you pick will be the person. So this is
Um,
real. Don't mess
okay.
it up.
I've got 37.
37. This is old school. I'm like on paper here. 37. Okay, so the winner of the UCAN Marathon Training Bundle is I Run for Mackenzie.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, I Run for Mackenzie, and her response to who she would train with, it was, I run by myself, but I run with my dog. So I'm gonna put who I wish I could train with, and she put somebody else's name, so, or who she runs for. So she put like I think she runs for Mackenzie, so I think she tagged Mackenzie. So
Okay.
I think that's a good win. You did a good job picking. Thank you so much. But just to round this out, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of speak to the audience or anybody that you'd want to kind of leave them on a positive note as we bring this race to an end.
Oh, I just hope everyone has a good run today if you haven't run yet, and enjoys the rest of their week. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Emily. You inspired us. You inspired the country, probably the world, last Saturday. So, thank you so much for continuing that. You went after it, third time's a charm, and you absolutely crushed it in great style and great fashion. So, we hope to see you again, maybe Houston, and we
Yeah.
will be rooting for you there as well. Thank you so much for everybody watching. Please remember to make sure that you run, eat, sleep, and repeat. Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you, UCAN, for sponsoring this episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.